Hello and welcome to Chi, the Contemporary History Intervention. This is the 5th season of this video series, generally supported by the University of Birmingham. And just like the last season in the fall of 22, this is a video series with a running theme, the power of going global in historical research. Now, if you hear that, you might say, well, so what? After all, global history is no longer what one could call a fresh endeavor. There was this wave of academic interest in global history, partly a byproduct of the globalization discourse of the 1990s. And if you want to study global history nowadays, you have a choice of quite a range of programs. Of course, the best program with the most charming teachers is the Global History MA here at the University of Birmingham. Global history is no longer entirely new, but I think we're still exploring the potential, what it means to go global in the historical profession. I'm doing this partly because my impression is that the enthusiasm for going global is waning a bit. And the field is probably going through a phase of self-reflection and maybe even self-doubt. If you want to phrase it in human terms, one might say that global history is going through some kind of midlife crisis. It's no longer that brash young field that is out there to change everything. And globalization is no longer that magic word that it was a few years ago. We no longer live in this imagined world of fascinating diversity and all sorts of connections. We live in a world of eternal struggles and crisis, and it's tempting to withdraw from all this and keep writing national, regional, local histories. So it's time for a video series that celebrates the power of history written in a global context. And this video series will zoom in on one particular issue, our mode of historical narration, and how it fails us when we go global. Every video in this series will be about a story where we have an established script that you may be familiar with. When we talk about London smog or DDT or today's topic, the dodo, there is a story that we tell and retell as if it were self-evident. And what I'll show is in these videos is that they are not self-evident, not at all. The hegemonic way of telling these stories reflects the predilections of affluent Western urbanites. And once we move beyond this comfort zone, this familiar frame of reference, we will see different perspectives and different voices, and we see different stories and different ways of telling stories, and we ignore all this at our own peril. So this video series will be about the diversity of views and perspectives around the world, and it will be about the sweet poison of linear storytelling. If you take today's topic, the conventional wisdom about the dodo is that it is about a charming bird that became extinct and that left a cultural legacy that alerts us to the perils of extinction. It's a classic example of a linear story down to a clear moral bottom line at the end. But linear storytelling doesn't work on a planet where experiences and perspectives keep changing. When we go global, we inevitably navigate rough waters with plenty of turbulence. And no, it's not a coincidence that I use hydraulic metaphors here. My argument is that we should see global modernity as a giant vortex, a planet-sized body of water in constant motion with obstacles and cross currents and a giant sucking sound that is the result of masses in motion. Modern history is, after all, about huge masses in motion to an extent that has brought scientists to talk about a great acceleration and a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene, where the impact of humans is on a par with the forces of nature. But these huge masses do not act by themselves, they become entangled with political, social, economic, and cultural forces in many different ways, and our collective experience as citizens of the modern era is akin to people who are adrift in a giant vortex and who struggle to stay afloat. So that is a second goal of this video series. I want to turn the vortex into a household term for the historical profession, the term that designates the fluid context in which the drama of modern history is playing out. And if you want to learn more about the vortex and how it changes our understanding of modern history and world history, let me point you to this book, The Vortex, An Environmental History of the Modern World, about to be published by the University of Pittsburgh Press on April the 18th. This book includes a chapter on the dodo, and no, it's not the story that you will be familiar with. It's not because the conventional wisdom about the dodo is wrong. Yes, the dodo lived on an Indian Ocean island named Mauritius. Yes, the dodo figures prominently in collective memory, and not just in environmental circles. One of the pillars of dodo commemoration is that it played a major role in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. And yes, the dodo is extinct and has been for a while. It went extinct at some point in time in the late 17th century. But that means the dodo went extinct at a time that did not yet know what extinction was. And that suggests that the story of the dodo is about more than what happened on that island in the Indian Ocean. If you look at it in the global context, the real story about the dodo is about the making of a cultural and scientific legacy, and that legacy looks different depending on your point of view. If you view the dodo as a symbol of extinction, well, you need to have a concept for extinction, and you need to know why extinction is actually a bad thing, because that is not a given. If you've read your Charles Darwin, well, you could just argue that extinction is simply the underside of survival of the fittest, and if you look at the dodo with survival of fitness terms, well, let's just say that fitness is not the word that comes to mind when you look at a dodo. The dodo is a flightless bird that has an endearing clumsiness, but that is what made it iconic for the conservation community. It is the kind of helpless creature that seems to cry out from its grave for some kind of benevolent human that is about to save it from oblivion. These bodily features were a very severe disadvantage on the island of Mauritius, because when those Dutch sailors came and collected dodos, they were doing exactly that, collecting rather than hunting. But this same clumsiness was a boon when it came to cultural evolution. The dodo is world famous nowadays as a symbol of extinction, but maybe that says more about the predilections of Western urbanites than about the extinction of species. That goes for our infatuation with images. The dodo thrives on a visual culture that cherishes iconic quality. But if animals were small or ugly or devoid of furs and feathers, the chances of gaining respect from Western media consumers was small indeed. And it goes for numbers. After all, the problem about extinction was and is that it occurs on a giant scale. To an extent that scientists now wonder whether we are witnessing the sixth mass extinction events in the history of our planet. And just to put that into perspective, the fifth mass extinction was 65 million years ago. That is what spelled the end of the dinosaurs. And if you look at it in this way, that the problem of extinction is that it happens en masse, it's really odd that we talk about one single species so much. It's typically lost in dodo commemoration that the extinction of the dodo was not unique, not even in its own place and time. The dodo was just one of 48 species that went extinct on Mauritius before 1800. So far, the dodo had a pretty comfortable cultural afterlife. It's a powerful symbol for environmentalists. It's a protagonist in a famous novel. It's one of the world's best known birds and the object of a multi-generational scientific inquiry that has produced a tremendous body of knowledge. We know far more about the dodo than about other extinct species. But I think that is an ambiguous achievement at a time when species go extinct that we do not even know. So if we look at this in a global context, or as we shall say in this video series, if we see this as part of the many things that drift along in the vortex, we see that there is another potential reading. And I think this is a reading that may emerge as hegemonic once the extinction of species turns from a biological concept into experienced reality. Stuck on a planet that has wasted its biological diversity, humans may view our long-standing infatuation with the dodo as evidence that humans in our time failed to grasp what extinction was really about.